Hey guys, welcome to That Florida Feeling. How is everybody this week? I hope it's been a good week. Thank you guys to everybody who interacted with the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok pages. You guys are simply amazing as always. I'm glad to know that a lot of us have visited the state parks and that we have our favorites. And those of you who haven't yet, I'm sure you'll get there very soon. And those of you who have visited more than 10, I am truly impressed. I've gotten about 5 or 6 under my belt. That's still a goal of mine, is to definitely visit more. I'm sorry that the poll was late again. It's probably ended up being a Thursday poll the way life's going. So it is getting to be really nice outside. It's hot, of course, but it's Florida, but it's nice. And since spring is here and summer is very quickly well on its way, kiddos are getting out of school, vacations are starting to happen. It's time to find new places to explore in the Sunshine State. And honestly, Florida does one thing I think better than most states, and that is that they have amazing state parks. And I've done a few episodes on state parks in Florida because there are so many, and I thought it was time to do another one. I think it's always fun to do one when the seasons change, especially so we can find new places to explore, and especially since some parks are better in certain seasons. If you haven't heard my episodes on the state parks, I definitely say go check them out. But just to give you kind of a refresher, let me tell you a little bit about the background of Florida state parks. Florida state parks have been recognized numerous times for being some of the best in the nation. Florida actually has 175 state parks and 9 state trails that encompass more than 800,000 acres. The state parks usually work with nonprofits named Friends of, and you insert the state park and then state park. So like Friends of Washington Gardens. That's a nonprofit, and it works to assist the park. It assists with volunteering and helping to enhance the parks, to keep them clean, to keep them beautiful, and to make people want to come back year after year or week after week. Depends on where you're at. A lot of the parks do have a nominal fee to get in, but, that's just to keep them updated and maintained, and, the rangers, and it's just to help keep them running, keep those grills nice and those picnic tables in good shape and the shelters and things like that. But some of the parks do have some really cool things like cabins, marinas, campsites, and other activities in the park that are a separate fee, but definitely worth it. The parks together offer over 3,600 family campsites, 186 cabins, thousands of picnic tables, hundreds of miles of beaches, and over 2,600 miles of trails. Florida parks are open year-round and offer activities such as fishing, hiking, camping. Some have horseback riding in facilities. Some have birding. Some even have the ability to swim and scuba dive. There really kind of is something for everyone in Florida state parks. You actually can see battle reenactments in some of the parks, as well as enjoy the freshwater springs and beaches. A few parks were even privately owned attractions that were purchased by the state, like Rainbow Springs and Weeki Wachee. They're fun to visit. They're great places to go. They're not a lot to get in. You can spend an entire day. They have great facilities. But let me tell you a few facts about Florida state parks, now that I've told you how cool they are. A few facts that are the part. So I can't say enough about the parks, first of all. I really enjoy them. I try to visit each and every one of them. Of course, I have only gotten to about 7, so you can tell that there's a lot on my bucket list. But you can find a state park in 58 of the 67 counties. So if you're in a county, you probably have one. If it's not in your county, it's the one next to it. 9 of the parks do not have state park in their title. 4 of them are actual conservation areas. 3 are historical or archaeological sites. There's 1 fishing pier and 1 recreational area. 7 of the parks are considered what is underdeveloped with little or no facilities. 10 are accessible by ferry or private boat only. 13 parks contain national natural landmarks, and there are 11 national parks in Florida. Those are run by the National Park Service. Chances are there is something that piques your interest in a Florida state park. And the first state park I want to talk to you about today is one that I am a huge fan of because I love the city that it's in. I love its history. I think it's just awesome. And the first park I want to introduce you to is Ybor City Museum State Park. The park is located in Ybor City in Tampa, and it lets you explore the history behind what would become the cigar capital of the world. Don Vicente Martinez Ybor came to the Tampa area with an idea. But when he came, he found pine scrubs and swamps. That didn't stop him, though. He was the man that would build Tampa and Ybor City into the cigar capital. And the cool thing about this museum is that it shows you what life was like during the first cigar factories in the 1880s, all the way up to the 1930s, and really life in Ybor at that time, because that was really the peak of Ybor City and the cigar capitals. And Ybor City really flourished during these years, and this little urban park is dedicated to preserving that cultural heritage and history. But who was Don Ybor, who came with this idea? Well, he was born in Spain in the 1818, and moved to Cuba when he was 14. He had learned about the cigar industry while he was in Cuba and even started a small business in Havana in 1856. He ended up leaving Cuba in 1868 due to fighting, because Cuba was trying to win its independence from Spain and he didn't want to get in the middle of that fighting. So he moved to Florida to find a new place to start up his business. He started in Key West, but after having no real luck and actually meeting hostile locals, he gave up and moved to just outside of Tampa in a very underdeveloped area. He saw this as being, the ideal spot. There was an influx of immigrant workers in the late 1880s, and he knew that this was an opportunity to start and employ his factory. And he did. He even wanted to keep his workers happy, so he offered good pay, and he even offered affordable housing options in and around Ybor City, which I think is really cool and way ahead of its time. It kind of sounds like the mining towns out west, where you go and you live in the mining housing in the stores, and I think that's kind of what he did in Ybor City, and it just grew, it flourished. He actually built up the area, not only with his factories and housing, but he also had a hotel, a factory, and the first line for a streetcar, which actually still runs today. And if you ever get the chance, ride them. It is such a cool experience through Ybor and Tampa. And of course, with all of his help, the city grew rapidly, and within a few years, 3,000 residents became known as the cigar capital of the world. Ybor just grew. Unfortunately, Don Ybor himself died in 1896, but he has not been forgotten. Streets are named after him, factories, restaurants, the whole city. He left his indelible mark on Tampa. The park that is, named after his idea is located in the former Ferlita Bakery. Originally was the La Joven Francesca Bakery, our building, and this former bakery in itself has some amazing history. The building is at 1818 9th Avenue in Ybor, and itself is historic because it was one of the earliest U.S. bakeries to produce Cuban bread. The bakery actually made bread up until 1973, when it was converted into this museum to preserve not only its history, but the history of the area and to celebrate the culture. The museum has displays covering the making of cigars, the Latin community from the 1880s to the 1930s, and of course ovens from this beautiful bakery. It even includes an ornamental garden. The Ybor City Museum State Park is one of Florida's 2 National Historic Landmark districts, and you can take a tour of this museum and learn about the history of the area, see how the area became the cigar city. You can see the casitas, which are the homes, casita or little house, to see how these people would have lived in their daily life. And you can actually see these houses. They've been restored to show you what it would have looked like to have a typical house of a cigar worker who would have lived during the early 1900s in Ybor City. They show the lifestyle and the culture of the workers in the area. The park also has a beautiful ornamental garden in the Mediterranean style that provides a quaint and quiet space in the middle of bustling Ybor. The garden looks straight out of old Florida, including Ybor City's lamppost and a gorgeous fountain. The garden has decorative statues and, of course, beautiful, colorful native plants that just add to the space. Now, the park isn't a huge one. It's actually not very big at all. But it does show you the history of such an important area in Tampa and in Florida. The park has tours. Of course, you can see the museum exhibits. You can go through the gardens. The gardens are actually a really nice place for weddings or gatherings. There's even a gift shop to let you get a memento to remember this amazing part of Florida and Tampa's history. This park is not open every day. It's one of the few that is not. This park is only open Wednesday through Sunday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and it is $4 per person. If you're in the area, definitely check this part out. It is a great piece of Florida history. And then you walk a couple blocks and you get a Cuban from Carmine's, and you watch out for the roosters and the chickens roaming the streets, and you just take in this really cool culture that still exists in this little part of Tampa. If you can't tell, I'm supremely partial to Ybor City. The next park I want to talk to you about is Troy Springs State Park. This park is near Branford, Florida, so kind of up north. And this park is home to one of Florida's 33 first magnitude springs. Now, for a very long time, the spring was only accessible by boat or taking dirt roads through cow pastures until the state bought it in 1995. In fact, there's people who actually remember taking their boats right into the springs. So there's definitely a lot of history here, and the state took it over or bought it in 1995, and they wanted to make this a place where everybody could enjoy, the springs and the beautiful nature around it. And it is a beautiful place. You can snorkel, fish, you can boat, you can just enjoy the outdoors. But the spring is home to something extraordinarily unusual. The spring is home to the Madison. The Madison is a Civil War era steamship that was once owned by James Tucker. He owned it in the 1950s, he captained it, and the ship was actually used on the Swanee River as a floating mail service and trading post for those living in and around the river. It's a very important ship. The Madison was used by the Confederates in the Civil War as a privateer and a makeshift gunboat. The boat was eventually ordered to be sunk in the spring to stop anyone else from using it. You can actually still see it today. You can actually see the metal spikes and the keel rib timbers just below the spring's surface. It's definitely an interesting part of Florida history. And of course, the spring is home to many different experiences. The springs have a boat dock for day use. You can't launch into the springs from there anymore, but you can access it. You can go paddleboarding, kayaking, canoeing. All these are fun experiences in this park, especially let you take in the springs from the water level. Fishing is also hugely popular. You can fish from the riverbank or the dock. You obviously can't fish in the swimming area. Geoseeking is another huge thing that's very popular in all the Florida state parks, and this is actually popular in this one as well. Hiking is popular as there is a nice nature trail in the park. They have a half-mile trail that takes you through the hardwood hammocks around 2 small ponds and around the springs. It's very nice for a leisurely stroll, to get your exercise in or just take in the wildlife. The park is beautiful. I'm going to post a picture of it on Instagram, but it's beautiful. It's perfect for picnics, gatherings, even weddings. The huge canopy trees and beautiful area means that, it's perfect. It's shaded at times. You can hear the birds. You can see the wildlife, the natural flora and fauna. It's really just gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous just to take in. And, of course, they have tables and grills and restroom facilities and pretty much anything to fun day with the family to a wedding, a new family. Now, one thing that really brings this park to life and people really want to come is that you can actually scuba dive in this spring. The spring is 70 feet deep and can be used for open water diving and training. The spring does have a diver rent station and an outdoor shower and other facilities that you would need. There is a paved switchback ramp that provides access to the spring that allows you to bring your gear to the spring and ready to use. You can also snorkel if scuba diving is not your thing. There's a lot to see both above and below the waterline. You can just swim if you don't want to snorkel. And you can swim into the river to see fish and turtles. You can see the Madison below. Or you can just enjoy the constant 72-degree water due to the natural spring feed. There are shallow areas where you can just kind of sit and relax and enjoy the whole day. The park really does have something for everyone, and you can make an entire day out of it in this historic state park with these beautiful springs and the awesome nature around you. The park is open year-round. It's $5 per group, $4 for a single-occupant vehicle, $2 for pedestrians or bikes. It is an honor box fee system. A lot of the state parks actually have these. I know Avalon State Park does over towards Fort Pierce. Just pay the buck. Just pay it. Please just pay it. I know it's an honor system, so honor it. Just pay the couple bucks to enjoy it like everybody else is. Don't be that person. I've seen people do that, and I think that's rude. So don't do that. If it's an honor system, just pay the honor system. The next state park I want to introduce you to is Edward Ball Wakulla State Park in Wakulla Springs, Florida. Another one kind of up there in the Panhandle. The park is on the National Register of Historic Places and a National Natural Landmark. The park itself gets its name from Edward Ball, who was the DuPont family manager who sold the lands to the state. He's also the man responsible for building the absolutely beautiful lodge on these grounds back in 1937. The park is home to one of the world's largest and deepest freshwater springs. The waters are always a beautiful sapphire color, and you can see manatees, alligators, turtles, and other wildlife enjoying the cool waters. And the cool thing about this park is that it's been popular. It's been popular way before Florida was even thought of. The history of the park is much older than the 1930s. The lands were actually believed to have been lived on by the Paleo Indians some 12,000 years ago. And the reason they know this is because they can tell that they lived and fished and hunted in the area, because at the bottom of the spring bowl, it's littered with the bones of mastodons, giant sloths, giant armadillos, camels, and other creatures that help to feed their lifestyle. And to me, that is just insane. This is another one of those parks that really does kind of have something for everybody, if you want to be in the spring or beside them. It has 2 large trails that can be enjoyed for bicycling, walking, or hiking. The Sally Ward Trail and the Hammock Spur Trail both offer different sites and difficulties. The park offers 9 miles of trails altogether. Their nature trail goes through the southern hardwood forest and the maple cypress habitats. The trail has a bridge over the Sally Ward Spring Run that takes you on the north side of the Wakulla River. And October through March is really probably the best time to enjoy this trail, because remember, you are in the Panhandle. It does get cold. As you enjoy this trail, though, you can see orchids, wildflowers, robins, warblers, and other various wildlife as you explore. They have another kind of cool, I think this one's really cool, actually. Not kind of, but it's really cool. It's called the Cherokee Sink Trail. And it is located on the Cherokee Sink track of the park. It's on the west side of the road, opposite from the main park. So if you're pulling in, to go in the actual main entrance, it's the opposite of it. The trail is only about 1.5 miles, but it takes you to Cherokee Sink, which is an 80-foot deep sinkhole lake. You can see crabapple and dogwoods in bloom along the trail if it's spring, and they have a picnic area set up. And you can even see what remains of a historic cemetery as I am going to say this wrong because it's French, and I'm not good with French, but Cassieaux, Casseaux. Somebody's yelling it at me right now. I know it. But that cemetery is located along the south rim of the lake. They're actually working to restore the plots and the headstones. The park is most known for its springs, so scuba diving, snorkeling, and swimming are extremely popular. You can open water dive at the Cherokee Sink if you have the correct certifications. It is a little more dangerous, so they want to make sure that the proper people are doing the proper things. However, snorkeling is hugely popular as a main activity in the main park within its swimming areas. And of course, swimming is a hugely fun activity here. You can swim in designated areas near the spring, but they have a really cool diving platform at the spring head, so you can jump right in. The area does have a small beach near the platform where you can relax, soak up the sun, and just enjoy the day. The park is also really, really well known for its views of the wildlife. You can take a boat cruise. It's actually one of the most popular things to do in this park that allows you to see more of the spring than you thought possible. The boat takes you along the Wakulla River for about 45 to 55 minute tour that allows you to see the wildlife, the springs, and take in the nature around you. You actually go on a 2-mile loop downstream where you can see bald cypress trees, wading birds, manatees, alligators, turtles, and who knows, some days things surprise you. You can also take a glass bottom boat tour, which is really, really cool. This thing goes over the spring basin. So this is where you get a glimpse into the bottom of the Wakulla Spring, and you get to see the ancient remains of those giants, the long-forgotten giants, the mastodons, the schools of fish, the turtles, and what lurks beneath the depths of an ancient spring. Of course, the park has a cool picnic area for those who want to come and enjoy the day, but they also have a restaurant for those who get super hungry during their visit. The Ballroom Restaurant offers Southern-inspired foods. It is open from 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. I did look at the menu. It's pretty reasonable. They have a huge selection of food. Reservations, though, are something that will probably be needed because it's busy and it's delicious and everybody kind of wants to eat there. The park also is home to a really cool soda fountain gift shop. So if you want to stop by and get you a drink or some ice cream, they have all the ice cream inspired creations. They also have some of those like grab and go hamburgers and hot dogs, just something to munch on for right then. But of course the gift shop, so don't hesitate to find that perfect souvenir or take one home to your family. The state park is also home to the lodge at Wakulla Springs. And that's kind of cool because that lodge was built by Mr. Ball back in the 1930s. And it actually serves as a hotel where you can stay and get the full experience of the area. The lodge actually is reasonable. I had to look it up. I had to plan a fake vacation in my head just so I could see. And it's like $130 a night. And it is super nice. The accommodations look really nice, really clean. The reviews look great. And it just kind of adds to your time in this beautiful state park. I did find it interesting that they have like a gathering room at the bottom of the lodge, and that is the only place you will find a TV. They do not have a TV in the rooms. And I think that's just great. I think that really allows you to enjoy your time enjoying nature or talking to one another back like in the old days where not everything had a TV or a cell phone. But the park is a great place to spend a day exploring, swimming. You can even ride horses. You can stay overnight to see the full beauty of this area. The park is open year-round and definitely a great place to check out. The only thing I will say, keep in mind, it is in the Panhandle. It does get colder up there. I feel like this is kind of a spring to fall place to visit. But, it is Florida. Maybe there's heat waves in January. Go enjoy yourself. But I hope that in the parks I've talked to you about, that you have found somewhere new to explore in the Sunshine State, especially over the spring and summer. The parks do get busy, so you might want to get there early. Don't forget to bring your water. Wear your sunscreen. Don't feed the wildlife. Please don't feed the wildlife. Don't feed the gators, y'all. Don't be that person. But also, you got to beware of Florida Man. Because Florida Man likes Florida State Parks too, unfortunately. Today's Florida Man headline kind of says it all. It's pretty much self-explanatory. Florida Man steals bees because he thought they were abandoned. I guess they say no good deed goes unpunished. I don't know. Drugs are a thing, y'all. Stay off of them. All right, guys, thank you for listening. I hope that everybody has a great weekend. I hope you do something fun this weekend. If you're working like I am, I feel you. I'm right there with you. Don't forget, guys, wear sunscreen, drink water, do something nice for someone else. And as always, that's your daily dose of sunshine.